Good evening. Welcome to the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth. In the news today, we're going to be covering some stories that have been going on for the last few days. Senator Ron Johnson speaks out on the office of the Director of National Intelligence. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, recently spoke out on the Director of National Intelligence decision to no longer provide in-person briefings on election security to congressional intelligence committees. During an interview Sunday, Johnson noted that the briefings will continue in written form and will no longer take place in person due to apparent leaks. Although he said Russia has always and will try to destabilize American elections, Johnson suggested concerns about the briefings are being exaggerated. Of course, I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. I believe they're very serious concerns, and I believe it goes as far as the top or the head of the Intelligence Committee. And he goes on to say it's being blown out of proportion, but we can see also right there that he is one of the Republicans that think that there's nothing going on. Some people are clueless. Some people, despite what things are, as he goes on to say here, despite the change, Johnson asserted lawmakers will still have the opportunity to question officials working on the election security. What Adam Schiff did with this false narrative, what the news media did in the terms of false Russian collusion with Trump campaign narrative, a criminal investigation special counsel, that is what has destabilized our politics, continued the Republican senator. Meanwhile, top Democrats such as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi have called the Director of National Intelligence decision shocking. Yeah, give me a break. Shocking. Shocking like when you don't invite the Republican members of Congress into secret meetings that you're having in the basement of the House of Representatives or in the Capitol. Yeah, it's so shocking. Another note in news, Joe Biden has a crowd in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on a campaign event. Do I look like a radical socialist? You know, I'd like to answer that question. I don't think you look like a radical socialist. No, I do not, Mr. Biden. But I also think you're controlled by radical socialists. Your weak demeanor and the way you appear before the public, I mean, I wouldn't hire you on a job with that kind of presentation you gave. Oh, what are you talking about, man? No, he wouldn't even get a job for me if I was a boss working and hiring people. Joe Biden zeroed in once again on President Trump's claims about him and his promises of law and order, and a return to the campaign trail Monday amid rising violence in the city. Speaking at a former steel factory in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the 77-year-old Democratic nominee also addressed allegations that he would be weak and servile Trojan horse for the left flank of his party, asking voters, do I look like a radical socialist with a soft spot for rioters? Mr. Biden, whether you look like it or not, you just started saying something just because the poll numbers have dropped in your favor and against you or against the Democratic Party. The polls are dropping, so you pull your plans up and you moved out earlier from your basement and bunker. Trump advertises himself as a figure of order, he says. He isn't, Biden said, in a must-win Keystone State, calling the president a toxic presence who had poisoned the values we as a nation hold dear. Give me a break. All he is doing is uplifting the values of this nation. Then he goes on to say, fires are burning and we have a president who fans the flames rather than fighting the flames. He continued attacking Trump on his central election promise of restoring order to American streets, and that he will do, Mr. Vice President Biden. This president, he says, long ago forfeited any moral leadership in this country. He can't stop the violence because for years he has fomented it. Biden maintained. You know, I'm going to kind of read this. I'm going to read this line I read earlier, the way that Biden was reading it, to show you how much passion he's got. This president long ago forfeited any moral leadership in this country. He can't stop violence because for years he fomented it. Biden maintained. Give me a break. You can't even look like you're half alive when you get up to speak. How are we going to depend on somebody for strength and they look like they're having a hard time holding up their own strength? He calls him a septuagenarian president candidate, also scoffed at the claims that he could give a social agenda of progressives like Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I can never say the name. He said, "You know me." This is Joe. "You know me. You know my heart. You know my story, my family story." Yeah, your son's a darn crook. Yes, we know your story. Ask yourself, do I look like a radical socialist with soft spot for rioters? Really, he asked. Yes, you do. You threatened China. You threatened the UK. No, I'm sorry, you didn't threaten China. You walked right along with them. You threatened the UK by holding money back. You did a quid pro quo right on live TV. Yet you persecuted our president that did nothing that even resembled closely a quid pro quo. And then all of a sudden you go through all this mess. And here we are, months later, the Democrats in Congress have accomplished nothing up to the end of the year and then tried to hold things up even after that. Biden addressed the riots in Portland and Kenosha and took aim at Trump's claim that Americans would not be safe under his soft on crime Biden administration. I agree, Mr. Biden, this country would not survive under your leadership. The Democrats continue to lead nationally in the polls, they say 6.9%. And what I'm saying is these polls, even that they're showing they were false back when Hillary Clinton was running for president. They proved to be false. A lot of the claims that were made about her numbers and everything else were false, outright lies. So we don't pay attention to polls. And if we are going to pay attention to polls, we'll pay attention to honest polls, not polls that create numbers. Anyway, we're going to take a short break here on the Black Conservative Voice, and we'll be right back at you in a moment here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth.
Dr. Melinda Morris supports a strong economy, safe neighborhoods, limited property taxes, and promotes an improved education system. Dr. Melinda Morris wants to improve access and insurance coverage for medical care. Dr. Morris is pro-life and will support right-to-life legislation in Austin. Dr. Morris will remain true to her values when she is elected to office. She is going to Austin to promote life, prosperity, and personal freedom for the constituents of Senate District 13.
Welcome back. You're watching the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth. Trump appears to back the claim suspected teen gunman acted in self-defense. This is what he says, and opening this article, rips left-wing political violence. And this is from, I believe, from a Fox News report. During a White House press briefing, Trump appeared to support the claim that the 17-year-old Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense, saying that the teenager tripped and that he probably would have been killed if he hadn't used his weapon. And the quote is like this: "He was in very big trouble," Trump said. "He probably would have been killed," and that is the truth. He probably would have been killed. They've already proven that they can do bodily harm and try to kill people. The BLM and Antifa, they try to stomp a white man's brains out in the street in Portland. So why is this guy not going to be afraid of the same type of people in Kenosha, Wisconsin? The defendant's legal team claimed he was acting in self-defense, which he was. Social media videos show Rittenhouse, who has been charged with murder, being chased before he fell and fired at his pursuers. Kyle Rittenhouse left with backwards cap, walks along Sheridan Road in Kenosha, Wisconsin on Tuesday with another armed civilian. Prosecutors on Thursday charged Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old from Illinois, in a fatal shooting of 2 protesters and the wounding of a third in Kenosha, Wisconsin, during a night of unrest following the weekend police shooting of Jacob Blake, as they say here, according to the Associated Press. Kyle Rittenhouse left with backwards cab, walked away along the road. And but anyway, let's go on. Also on Monday, the president also sought to tie Biden and his party to the unrest across the country, which they are tied to it. So that's why sometimes I hate reading from this liberal Fox News. They are the ones in the Democrat cities, or Democrat-run cities, are allowing this unrest. So let us stop talking about or trying to ignore it, Fox News and all you other liberal fake news media. The violence is fueled by the rhetoric of far-left politicians, Trump said. The rioters and Joe Biden have a side, and they're both on the side of the radical left. And that is correct. That is the truth. Just because you try to say it's true that they're not, does not mean it's true. Because you got people here standing and saying that these are peaceful protesters, and we're watching videos of them burning down buildings, destroying churches, violently attacking civilians as they pass by their protests. I saw a young white man and his daughter being chased by a group of BLM and Antifa people on internet posts. Don't say it wasn't them because they had the guards on. They were in a city, and I don't care if the people called them whatever they called them. You still have no right to be chasing people down, unarmed people, by the way, and try to harm them. Biden released a statement after the press conference slamming Trump over his comments on Rittenhouse. Tonight, the president declined to rebuke the violence. He wouldn't even repudiate one of the supporters who he charged with murder because of his attacks on others. Give me a break. He didn't attack nobody. Who has the history and the rhetoric of the thing of attack? That is Black Lives Matter and the Antifa protesters, or what do you want to call them? Rioters is what they are, and domestic terrorists is what I call them. Trump comments come a day before he expected to travel to Kenosha, Wisconsin, a city that is reeling from protests over the police shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man who was shot even 7 times in the back after police responded to a call about a domestic dispute and the shooting of protesters. Demonstrators are calling for the officer who authorities say shot Blake to be fired and face attempted murder charges. Blake's death has ignited new demonstrations against radical injustice and police brutality months after George Floyd's death while being detained by Minneapolis police officers touched off a wider reckoning on the race. The thing is, a lot of times what they're ignoring in these reports is both these people, even those person who was killed was resisting arrest. They were resisting arrest. It was clear. They blocked a part of the tape. They took the parts of the tape or received those, the one that looked like the officer was all at fault, and showed that. It did not show Mr. Floyd resisting arrest. Trump goes on to say, we're ready and willing and able to help Democrat-run cities. Just call me. Both Mayor of Kenosha and Wisconsin and Governor Tony Evers, a Democrat, said that they believe that Trump's visit comes at a bad time. Evers sent Trump a letter urging him not to come, saying the visit will only delay our work to overcome division and move forward together. What did I tell you? These Democrat mayors and Democrat governors are wimps. They're chickens. Oh, we don't want no trouble. We don't want nobody saying nothing about it. We don't want Antifa or Black Lives Matter coming to our house like they did with that young lady in Chicago. Oh, they don't want them coming there. No, they don't want them coming there. They don't want them coming to their house. But I'm telling you, Mayor Wheeler, don't believe that they won't come to your house. They don't like you either. Don't let the pretense of them liking you. What they hate is America. So they're haters of America, Antifa and BLM. No matter what you do, this is the way terrorists are. No matter what you do, you will never remedy the situation until you hand this government over to communist leaders, which the Democratic Party, unfortunately, is leaning more toward being. Trump added on money that Biden would give Antifa what they want should he be elected. And I tend to agree with President Trump, not because I respect him as our president, but because he's telling the truth. He says followers of Black Lives Matter protesters clash in the street. Trump insisted his supporters were there for peaceful protests, and I tend to agree with him because I'm one of his supporters, and we're not going after violence. Just like back in 1964, when Martin Luther King led a peaceful protest against racial injustices back then, who supported him? Who voted for the Civil Rights Act that gave the blacks in this country a special set of civil rights? That was the Republican Party. I don't know how you people keep missing that. The Republican Party is the one that passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Trump also refused to condemn the violence and unrest caused by the scruffies between the supporters and counters. This is Biden and his cronies talking. And when questioned by the reporter, arguing that paint is not bullets. And it's true, paint is not bullets. A paintball is not going to kill you. But if you're shooting at somebody that's shooting paintballs back at you, you know already that paintball is not going to harm you. Why are you trying to kill the other person? If you want to do tit for tat, get you a paintball gun, not a gun with bullets that will kill somebody. And they go on to say the president's comments come just hours after Biden accused Trump of poisoning the nation's values. Give me a break. President Trump is standing up for the nation's values, not pushing out against them. The Democrats, we need to do something about this. If you don't, you're not going to get many seats in the House or the Senate. Your constituents are not stupid. A lot of them are walking away in a walk-away program over to the Republican Party because they want some sanity in our cities and in our states, in this United States of America. Well, this is the Black Conservative Voice. We're going to take a break here right now, and we'll be right back with you in a moment here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth.
Commander-in-Chief. It's more than just a job. Since taking office, President Donald Trump has rebuilt our military, repaired a broken VA, and eliminated Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, ISIS, the world's deadliest terrorists brought to justice. Today, America is safer and stronger than ever. Because to President Trump, it's more than just a job. It's a sworn duty to keep America safe.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Welcome back. You're watching the Black Conservative Voice here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth. Well, here we go again. When anything needs to be accomplished, don't ask a Democrat. Please, don't ask a Democrat, because either they're going to lie to you, tell you they're going to do it, or either they're going to hold time up to help their political campaigns or poll numbers and stop the other side from getting good things done through cooperation with those from the other side of the aisle, namely the Republican Party. Nancy Pelosi's, I titled this, Nancy Pelosi's Dream $2.2 trillion stimulus that she will not share with Congress. She won't tell them what she wants in the thing. She just says, well, I could agree to a $2.2 trillion deal, but she's not telling them anything. So guess what? How can we resolve anything if the other side that has to sign their vote over gets no information on the basis of their vote? Would you sign a blank check? Who would do that? I'm not going to sign a blank check to give to Nancy Pelosi to do whatever she wants, to give to these Democrat cities that allowed their cities to be destroyed. And that's really all it is. She wants to pull them out of hole for destroying their own cities by not taking care of the rioters in their cities. They can say whatever they want, people. You know this is true. You've been watching the media. You need to vote for President Trump, because the problem is if you don't, they're going to keep the same stuff going over and over again. These delays in accomplishing things for the American people. We need to take control of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Until we get that accomplished, we're going to have a heck of a time getting anything done in this country, because the Republicans are willing to go across the aisle to make concessions, but the Democrats are not. It's either their way or no way at all. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about this thing with Nancy Pelosi. COVID-19 relief negotiation stalled as lawmakers fail to compromise. This is an article by Ebony Bowden in I think, a New York Post. What I'm saying is this. They're only stalling because the Democrats refuse to come to the table and tell us all they want, because they know the Republicans are not going to rebuild cities that were destroyed by people where the mayors and the governors allowed it to be destroyed. Coronavirus aid negotiations continue to stall between lawmakers in Washington as millions of Americans face financial breaking point amid the pandemic, with Nancy Pelosi banging, we're not budging. She don't want to budge. People, please get to the polls in November and vote her butt out of government. She is going to destroy this country, even if not by laws, or the Lord may have to take her out. Don't leave her in there. For her own good, get her out of there. She's too old, for one thing, and she needs to get out of her views and stuff are antiquated, and she just got this what I call a communist view. Hey, if you don't do it our way, it's not going to be done. A call between the powerful House Speaker and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said their first communication in weeks proved fruitless on Thursday, with both sides far apart on how much should be spent. And that's not true, because what happened was the Democrat House wanted to they passed this bill, of course, one-sided, lopsided partisan bill asking for $3.4 trillion aid package, but Republicans balked at the large price of tag to has refused to budge from their much slimmer $1 trillion bill. And the reason why they're doing that is because you can see in the legislation, in the bill, you can see that Nancy Pelosi is trying to support the cities that allowed the mayors that allowed their cities to be torn apart, and their mismanagement of city funds and government funds in the first place in their states. Okay, Pelosi goes on and told reporters that Democrats would be willing to make a $1 trillion concession, but said GOP lawmakers were unwilling to meet them in the middle. This is a lie. We have said again and again that we are willing to come down and meet them in the middle. This is Mark Meadows talking. That would be $2.2 trillion. Pelosi said after a 25-minute call with Meadows for Political Report, this is what I believe she said. She said, when they're ready to do that, we'll be ready to discuss and negotiate. She continued, I did not get that impression on the call. That's a lie. She did not. It was clearly said, Mr. Meadows, of course, in these liberal reports, Mr. Meadows told her, wanted to know what it was she was asking for in a $2.2 trillion. He told her let's go over this. He told her he was willing to go, even come up to her. It said, let me read it here. That could be a very short conversation if they're not willing to meet the middle. She said earlier Thursday, we're not budging. What kind of negotiating is that? If you're going to say you're not going to budge, Miss Pelosi, understand this is the way it has to move. Negotiations between Pelosi and Meadows, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin dragged on for weeks in early August. And it is not the Republicans' fault. It is the Democratic Party fault because they refused to budge. But neither side was able to reach an agreement. Before the federal $600 a week boost to unemployment insurance ran out, House Democrats passed a doomed $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. Frustrated by the impasse, President Trump signed an executive order ensuring jobless Americans, he's bailing you out again, people, they will receive at least $300 a week bonus to state unemployment benefits. Democrats and Republicans have been unable to see past their differences, with Democrats pushing for funding for states, schools, and food stamps. More and more, more mental enslavement. Let's give them more money to keep them on the plantation of mental slavery, waiting for a welfare check, waiting for food stamps. The Postal Service and rental assistance as GOP prioritizes help for small businesses, they say, protection for COVID-19 insurance claims. I have seen nothing here. They mentioned nothing in this thing about a stimulus for the American people who are struggling right now, even so more. I'm just starting myself to get back into, get funding for things that I need to do for my other businesses. Meanwhile, millions of Americans have been rendered jobless by the pandemic, which has shuttered large swathes of the country for months on end and has killed 180,000 people in the U.S. Now, let me tell you another thing about that. The CDC came out with a report and said that 94%, this is from the Center for Disease Control. Let me tell you something. How can you accept one report from the CDC and say the other report is an outright lie? And this is what the Democrats are saying, what the fake news media is trying to say. They said that 94% of those deaths that have been attributed to COVID-19, only 10,000 of those deaths were actually only COVID-19. The majority of it were elderly people who were already sick, who were already in dire need of health care. So a lot of these people were, as I said before, were tagged with COVID-19 numbers just to raise the numbers up. It goes to say more than 58 million Americans have filed for unemployment claims during the pandemic, as more large companies like American Airlines plan to lay off up to 19,000 people. Nancy Pelosi, you Democrats, do something. If you want a chance, let me tell you this. If you want a chance, anywhere near a heck of a chance at all to win anything in November, even in Congress or even the House of Representatives, the Senate, whatever, if you want to win anything, you better give the American people their due. Those people are hurting or waiting for those dollars, and you will not release it. You keep playing around because you don't want President Trump equated with another positive thing. But what you're failing to see is the American people can see and they know what you're doing. We're not stupid. We can tell what you're doing. You're just trying to hurt President Trump. But along with trying to hurt President Trump, you're trying to hurt the people that President Trump is trying to help, the American people. So get off your butts and vote for the stimulus plan and give us our stimulus support. It was not our idea to shut this country down or to shut the economy down. Even though President Trump, he was pushed by all of you to shut this country down. Maybe it would have been worse. But to what I really see is there were 60,000 deaths that were equated to the normal flu virus, 10,000 to the COVID-19, and the rest of it had nothing to do with COVID-19 except for those that the medical staff were forced to tag it with, just because all they had was respiratory infection, so maybe they had COVID-19. Anyway, well, I want to thank you for joining me here today at the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert. It really saddens me what I see going on in this country. You go out of your way to hurt President Trump, Democrats, and you're hurting the American people because they're the ones that he's standing for. You may not think he is, or you may know he is, but you're just looking at the numbers in the poll and you're trying to hurt him so he'll lose numbers when it comes to the presidency. But is it worth it all? Is it worth most of the Democratic voters walking away from you and going toward President Trump? Is it worth it? Because I see what's really going on in America with the walkaway campaign that's going on with the walkaway movement. They're walking away from the Democratic Party. You may have a few stragglers, the far left or whatever, but man, it's going to look ridiculous in November because the Democrats know that if they vote for you, the Democrat constituents, if they vote for you, it's a vote for higher taxes, it's a vote for oil shortages. You're going to eliminate thousands and thousands of jobs of oil workers. You're going to kill our factories that have been reopened by our president and President Trump. You're going to destroy the trade deals because you want to kiss up to China. These things this country cannot afford. Well, I don't want to go on all night, but I would like to just thank you for listening. Remember, we also have advertising here on the program. If you want to support us and sponsor us, be it a political campaign or either a business that wants to advertise during our show time, we have spots at a very low rate. So check out the email on the screen here and just go ahead and shoot us an email, and our CEO will get back to you with contracts so that you can start advertising here on the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert. Well, once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me here on the program. I want to say what I always like to say before I go. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless the world. Good night.